guys, it's Mrs. Rainierson here. I am back to read The War I Finally Won, and we will be starting with chapter 12 today. If you notice, I am somewhere different. You've probably never seen this before. I'm teaching summer school, and so I'm in my classroom for the summer. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started with chapter 12. Chapter 12. The next morning, I woke early, nervous and excited about the paper chase. I dressed and made the fire and started oatmeal and tea. Jamie woke up cranky. Yikes. He said his head hurt and so did his arm. Remember the concussion, and he broke his arm. You must have overdone it, Susan told him. Too much Christmas. Pop back into bed. I'll read to you after I come home from walking Ada to the stables. I said, I can stay home. I'll take care of him. A paper chase was like a fox hunt, without a fox or hounds. Did I want to go on a fox hunt early? Don't be silly, Susan said. Jamie just needs sleep. I looked at her. Fill the coal hod while I fry you an egg. You'll need it for staying power. You'll probably be in the saddle for hours. She smiled. Becky was a great believer in eggs before a hunt. Eggs weren't rationed yet, but they were scarce. Jamie wanted hens. I brought in more coal. I straightened the sitting room, I ate my egg with toast war bread, drank my tea, and started to do the breakfast dishes. Susan came into the kitchen, pulling on her coat. Leave that, it's time to go. I'll walk over with you. You don't need to, I said, as if I couldn't walk to the Thornton stables without help. I'd like to, Susan said. I'll probably know everyone there. These were Becky's friends. Shouldn't you stay with Jamie? Ada. Susan raised her eyebrows. He's asleep. Also, he's perfectly capable of being left alone for a short time. He might break his other arm. He might... I don't need you, I said. I know that, Susan said. Neither does Jamie, just now. Let's go. Ooh, she knows what she wants, and she's going to do it. The Thornton stables were crowded with unfamiliar adults wearing posh riding habits and gleaming horses with braided manes. Maggie had lent me a tweed coat, and I had jodhpurs and proper boots, Maggie's hand-me-down, so I knew I looked all right. I looked just like Maggie, but I felt wildly out of place. I hadn't braided Butter's mane. Couldn't. I didn't know how. Susan surveyed the people with a slight smile. Same old crowd. She spoke to a few of them, then followed me into Butter's stall and stood by Butter's head while I brushed him. You never rode, I said. She'd sold Butter's hunters after Becky died. I gave it a good try, Susan said. Becky wanted me to. It just wasn't quite my thing. Too frightening, being on top of a 1,000-pound animal with a tiny little mind of its own. I looked up. Susan, afraid? But I went to parties, she continued, the hunt breakfast and the teas, and once even the hunt ball. She buckled Butter's girth on his offside and passed it under his belly to me. Did you like the parties? I did, Susan said. This surprised me. When we'd first come, Susan had been so sad about Becky's death that she didn't enjoy anything. She never went anywhere. Susan said, I have fond memories. What's fond? I wrestled the bit into Butter's mouth. Happy, content. You're going home now, right? I slid the reins over Butter's head and led them out of the stall. I looked around for Maggie. Butter! A woman I didn't know clapped her hands in delight. Look, everyone, Butter's back, and Miss Smith. She extended her hand to Susan, who shook it firmly. Are you writing again, the woman asked. No, said Susan. She patted my shoulder. This is my ward, Ada. She's taken over Butter. The woman shook my hand, too. How lucky for you, she said. Becky Montgomery trained that pony well. Susan and the woman kept talking. I saw Maggie across the yard with her pony, Ivy. I walked Butter over to them, tightened my girth, and climbed into the saddle. Someone blew a horn. There was a lot of laughing at that, though I didn't know why. Susan smiled and waved at me through the crowd. I nodded to her and gathered up my reins. You're not scared, are you? Maggie said. You look scared. I didn't think you were ever scared. Ma'am was worse when she knew I was afraid. I had learned never to admit it. There's so many people, I said instead. Before the war, it was always like this, Maggie said. In season, the hounds went out thrice a week. There weren't any hounds now. Instead, we chased a trail of scraps of paper, strewn by Fred from horseback a couple of hours beforehand. Lord Thornton led the way. Maggie and I held our ponies until the field cleared. As juniors, we had to ride in the rear. The galloping horses made Butter wild. He wanted to race. I held him tighter, but he fought me, snatching at the bit. Sweat streaked his sides. I braced my hands against his neck. Stop it, I said to him. You idiot, behave. Butter tossed his head. He danced sideways. He jigged. Let him go, Maggie said. Let him run a little. He'll settle down. I let him run, but I still had to grip the rein so hard my fingers hurt. I'd never known Butter to misbehave. You're winding him up, Maggie said. Relax. I couldn't relax. I didn't dare. A rabbit darted out from under Butter's hooves, startling me more than it startled Butter. My hands hurt. My breath hurt in my chest. The wind forced tears from my eyes. We came to a big ditch full of water. Ivy plonked into it and waded through. Butter hesitated, then leaped. I flew with him up out of the saddle, miles from the saddle. He landed on the ditch's far side. I kept going. I dropped the reins, pulled my arms in, and took the fall on my shoulder like Lady Thornton had said. I rolled across the grass unhurt. Butter pranced in place. His feet dangled in the dangling reins. He'd break the reins next, the wretched pony. I scrambled to my feet. Jonathan Thornton stopped Oban at Butter's side. Easy, he said, Butter. To me, he said, Are you all right? I nodded. I could feel my face flame. It had been months since I'd fallen off, since before the hospital. Jonathan dismounted. He untangled Butter and offered me a leg up. I can do it myself, I said. Of course you can, he agreed. I'm just trying to act the gentleman. I didn't mean to be prickly at him. I'm sorry. I let him toss me back onto Butter's saddle. Don't be, he said. We call it the champagne ditch for nothing. We don't call it the champagne ditch for nothing. I didn't know what that meant. That ditch is famous for getting people off, and if you fall off during a hunt, you have to buy a bottle of champagne for the masters. He grinned. Don't worry, I don't think the paper chase counts. Besides, you're a little too young for champagne. I frowned at him. I didn't know what the word champagne was. Fizzy wine, Maggie said helpfully. French stuff. I've had a sip. It's lovely. Jonathan raised his eyebrows. A sip, Maggie said. The other riders had left us far behind. We started after them at an easy canter. Butter quit fighting. Either he was finally tired or he was sorry he dumped me. Probably tired. Where'd you learn to ride? Jonathan asked. Here, I said. Fred teaches me. Then I laughed, remembering. I actually started with your horse, Oban. He jumped into our field. I jumped him out again. Jonathan stared. That was you? That was me, I said. It had been the day I first met Maggie, the day she whacked her head. But Mum said that was an evacuee, Jonathan said, a lame little girl from the slums. She made it sound like an accident. You weren't killed. Probably was an accident. I didn't know anything, I said. I'm not lame. I see that, Jonathan said. I never was lame, I said. Maggie frowned at me but didn't say anything. Neither did Jonathan. Your horse is lovely, I said, to fill the odd silence. Jonathan grinned. My sister despises him. I know, I said, but I love him. He didn't dump me when he could have. And he's beautiful. Oban had a grace and elegance Butter could never touch. It was like the difference between the Honorable Margaret Thornton and me. We cantered on, jumping a stile and then another smaller ditch. Butter had settled, and I felt safer riding between Jonathan and Maggie. I have to go back to the airfield tomorrow, Jonathan said, but next time I'm on leave, we'll ride out together. The two of you and me, just us three. Do you mean that? I asked. His brown eyes looked directly at me. Word of honor, he said. The rest of the riders had paused at the far end of the field. Jonathan trotted toward some of his friends. I said to Maggie, You never told me he was so nice. She shook her head at me. I never knew he was. Then she said, Why'd you say you were never lame? He knows all about your clubfoot and your your surgery. I shrugged. I didn't know why. I'm not lame, I said. It wasn't entirely true. I knew I still limped some even now. All those words, lame, crippled, no bit of grace. I wanted to forget I'd ever been that girl. After the chase, the Thorntons hosted what they called a breakfast, even though we didn't start eating until it was mid-afternoon. Any meal you have after hunting is called a breakfast, Maggie said. It doesn't make sense to me either. Maggie said if there wasn't a war on, we'd be eating steak and kidney pie. Kidney pie? But instead, we had a variation on the Lord Whorlton pie, a particularly awful wartime dish of baked vegetables that thickened with oatmeal. It was nearly full dark by the time I got home. Susan had put the blackout up by herself, and she and Jamie were snug by the fire. She smiled when I came in. Did you enjoy it? I took off my filthy boots in the entry. I nodded to Susan, smiling back. She got up and came toward me. I've come up with the perfect gift for you, she said. She handed me a slip of paper. Here, Happy Christmas. I padded into the room and pushed Jamie over so I could sit on the sofa. I unfolded Susan's paper. In large, clearly printed letters, it read, Transfer of ownership. The pony named Butter, from Susan Elizabeth Smith to Ada Maria Smith, December 26, 1940. She just gave her Butter. So legally, she's her owner now. So sweet. Chapter 13. Drink. Butter. To Ada Maria Smith. To me. I swallowed. I said, if you're joking, it isn't funny. Why would I be joking? Asked Susan. I said, and no one can take him away? No, Susan said, no matter what. I said, what if something happens and I can't take care of him? Susan said, I'll help you. I'm your guardian. We'll manage. What if something happens to you? Nothing will happen to me. She didn't know that. We'll manage, Susan said. We've managed so far. I closed my fingers around the paper. I whispered, thank you. Then I turned and ran up the stairs. Where are you going? Susan yelled. I'm putting this in the box with my birth certificate. Remember, she keeps all the important papers in there. Susan had shown me how to look up words in the dictionary. I stayed up in bed that night with my light on, reading. Guardian, one who guards, protects, or preserves. A keeper, defender, sometimes a guardian angel. Guardian angel. An angel conceived as watching over or protecting a particular person or place. Angel. A spiritual being believed to act as an attendant, agent, or messenger of God, conveniently represented in human form with wings and a long robe. Honestly, I had no idea what any of that meant. Guardian was someone who guards. Sure. That made sense. It was what I expected. But humans with wings? Messengers of God? Not so much. Ward. That word was complicated. It meant the rooms of a hospital, like where I stayed after my surgery. It meant a division or a city or town. It meant a minor under care of a guardian. That was me. But then it said archaic, to guard. Archaic, belonging to the past. The next morning, I asked Susan, do you know anyone with a guardian angel? She didn't look up from slicing bread. Maybe, she said. It's one of those odd religious ideas. Sounds nice, but doesn't actually matter. I wish she'd look at me. Have you ever seen one? I asked. No, she said. I'd rather be surprised if I did. Set the table, please. Where's Jamie? Once we sat down to breakfast, I said, you call Jamie and me your ward. The word ward used to mean the same thing that did the guarding. This time Susan gave me her attention. Have you been reading your dictionary? She said. I nodded. Well, the key part of what you just said is used to mean. Ward used to mean the thing that did the guarding. Now it means the girl who gets to be guarded and who, therefore, doesn't have to spend quite so much time worrying. Jamie said, why can't she just be our mom? I said, because she isn't. Ada, Susan said, I really don't mind Jamie calling me mom. I said, I'd rather be your ward. I want to help you. Susan paused to sip her tea. She said, you've been very strong your whole life, Ada. You get to be guarded now. You get to feel safe. Huh? I said, I'm supposed to feel safe? Of course. I never did. Never once. Anything could happen, anytime. Ma'am's death proved it. Do you feel safe? I asked her. She looked back in surprise. I do, she said. I mean, for a bit there with the air raids and when we thought the invasion was coming and that night in London, but mostly, yes. But Becky died, I said. She left you all alone. That made me sad, she said. It still makes me sad, but not unsafe. I said, Can I go fire watching? Susan had done a shift already. She'd stood in the church steeple for 2 hours in the dead of the night. She'd watched for fires and protected the village. Susan looked me up and down. She said, I think that's an excellent idea. And that is where we're going to stop today. We will start next time with chapter 14, and we'll have to see if it kind of goes into the WVS and the fire watching in the steeple. All right, guys. Hope you guys are enjoying your summer, and I will see you on Friday.